So, welcome. My name is Matt. I'm a managing partner of Volition Properties. Volition Properties is the one who's puts on this coffee house chat. It is also the one who runs our monthly meetup. And we are a real estate investment firm whose sole mandate is to help you, the investor, get started in investing in real estate if you haven't got started, or take it to the next level if you already gotten started. So we're here to support you. We run monthly meetups. We have coffee house chats, and we are a full service real estate investment firm, all the way from teaching you how to do it, helping you build a strategy through investment realty services, helping you find the property, and we have we have design and renovations. So we can help you do the renovations to create the rent-ready apartments, and leasing property management. So kind of all the services you need under one umbrella. And then what we talked about, what we did last, so I know Bruno was there. I think Sean was there, but I don't know how many others were there. Ming unfortunately wasn't able to join us because his dad had a sort of an emergency with his eye. How is everything, Ming? Better?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there's two things. It can be either like a damage at the back of the eye, which is a lot more serious, or damage at the front of the eye, which is less serious. There's damage at the front, but we'll find out when he goes sees the doctor next week.
Yeah, so Friday night, there was an unfortunate thing that happened with Ming's father's eye, so he went into the hospital. So Ming wasn't able to join us on Saturday for the Street Smart tour. But on the Street Smart tour, we toured two properties that are both undergoing triplex conversion. So that was a fun day, I think, for most people. Got some good feedback. Just as a follow-up to that, were there any other questions about the Street Smart tour, about the triplex conversion, about the business model, about the financials or the numbers? Anything before we get started? I think Bruno was the only one that I remember, or maybe Sean, who actually came on the tour. So did you have any questions?
I had one question that I meant to ask you when we were there. If let's say my target was to do executive rentals, would you do anything different with the property, either in the selection of the property or in the way that you renovate it?
So not necessarily, but I do have to caveat that executive rentals is a different space altogether. And I'm just gonna answer this very quickly, and then maybe I'll pose it out to Jason. So now Jason has some experience in this as well. Would I do anything differently? I wouldn't necessarily count on an executive rental strategy for this. Executive rentals, by definition, think about who you're trying to target. Literally, it's going to be executives, people who are going to come in probably on a contract or a project basis, maybe for 6 months, maybe for a year, maybe for 3 months. They're looking for a hotel alternative, right? So if you're looking for a hotel alternative, you have to provide a hotel alternative, which means oftentimes all the amenities that a hotel also provides. So quite honestly, a triplex, fourplex, or a triplex conversion, a luxury rental may not necessarily be the platform that you need in order to deliver an executive rental. And the reason I say this is because, Sean, if you want to go back a couple of months ago, we did maybe, I can't remember maybe you were even there. We had a executive rental expert come and present. And
yeah, I was there.
Okay, and so he was talking about like the location, for example. These locations that we're talking about, Little Italy or Trinity Bellwoods or Enix, it's close, but it's not quite there. These guys are looking for like 300 front or, festival towers. Like we're talking downtown core, right? Walking distance to probably a big bank or a big firm. So I don't think necessarily that it's a strategy you can count on for in a triplex scenario. But anyway, Jason, do you have anything to
add? I agree with you what you're saying on location. It seems like I remember his business model was it was only condos that they did.
Yeah.
So that cuts those out. I know when I tried to do executive rental I'm out in Roncesvalles, and I had two different firms that do executive rentals try to get people in, and I don't know, I've had 10 false starts over the last 8 months with them. So it just doesn't seem, for whatever reason, to be a good space. And in regards to how you'd change things renovation wise, as Matt sort of touched on it, like they are executives, so you're not doing baseline rental, you're doing high end rentals. Like you're doing quartz countertops, and all the finishes are very nice. And you're putting towels out, and they're not the cheap towels. Everything is super high end. And the other thing with executive rentals, if you can somehow get into a couple law firms and they just like you and want to constantly use you, fantastic. You're probably going to make a lot of money. But if you don't, you have a space that is a niche product that fits. Anybody will want to stay there, but for you to make a profit on the amount of money and you've put into the place, it's a much smaller section of the market.
Yeah.
It's not something I don't have a huge amount of experience in it, and I haven't had much luck in it yet. Like I have a guy in there right now that's renting it as just a long-term furnished rental, but I really would like to be renting it for $200 or $300 more than what I'm renting it for.
Yeah. No, it's thanks for the input. Ming, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I think that you guys kind of covered it. I wouldn't go after a triplex strategy for an executive rental. Kind of like what you guys said, it's very location specific, and those specific locations are not where homes are, right? They're where condos are. So.
Yeah, I have some experience with furnished rental / executive rental. Like, mind you, I'm in the annex, right? So my fourplex is in the annex, and I have had some success renting it out fully furnished. I've had a variety of different people, vice president of marketing for a company come in, and they just happen to be looking, and I happen to be renting out fully furnished. And then there was a lawyer who she was doing a major reno on her house in the annex, and she just wanted somewhere to stay. So you can kind of like land someone here and there, but as a strategy on an ongoing basis, it has to be more consistent than that. I wasn't necessarily targeting executive rentals. I was like, living abroad for a year, and then I just rented it out, right? Things like that. So anyway, does that give you some insight, Sean?
Yeah, that helps. Thanks, guys.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? Bruno, I know you were there. No. Your daughter doesn't have any questions either? Okay, cool. So let's move on then. Does anyone have anything they want to, like, the format? We've run this for, 4 or 5 months now. Completely open, completely, nothing's off the table. What do you guys want to talk about? Dave's wringing his hand. Okay, Dave.
I was wondering if you guys can give me some advice here. I have a condo that's been renting for, I think about 4 or 5 years now. And it's in a location where there's going to be a whole bunch more condos coming up. And one of the projects that's coming up is a large rental condo that's coming up. So we're going to have probably I'm guessing 200-300 units coming up for rent. I'm wondering if you guys have any experience with that in terms of whether that will adversely affect my rental property, or whether it'll somehow make it more attractive.
Where's your condo, Dave?
It's near Yorkdale.
Near Yorkdale. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it walking distance to the mall?
No, it's closer to the subway, Wilson Station.
Wilson
subway?
Station. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it tell us a little more about your condo? Is it?
Sure. It's a 1+ den.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a 1+ den. How much do you currently rent it for?
About $2,000.
Okay, cool.
Is the den rented out separately? Are you renting a 2-bedroom, or are you renting a 1-bedroom?
We just rent it as a 1+ den. We don't, because the den is not completely enclosed. It's got 3 walls.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So I'll give you some, we'll just talk about this in general. Do I have anything specific to tell you? Nothing specific, but I'll just talk about things in general. So I do know that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going up around Yorkdale, so that's probably what you're worried about. And where I'm going to start is I'm going to bring it back to the economic fundamentals. So I'll be perfectly frank, Dave. Yorkdale's not an area that we generally pay too much attention to. It's not an area that we advise our clients to invest in. And there's many, many reasons why. I'll touch upon them quickly. First of all, if we're talking about economic fundamentals, the economic fundamentals, we've talked about this a lot. Sorry for people like Jason, this is going to be a rehash. We've talked about this in the past. When you talk about economic fundamentals, you're talking about economic growth. We're talking about job growth. We're talking about population growth. We're talking about lowering of vacancy rates because people move in to take those jobs. We're talking about increased rents because as you know, supply and demand, decreased vacancy leads to higher rents. What ends up happening is we focus on the areas that have economic growth potential, not just where a whole bunch of buildings are going up. So for us, that's downtown Toronto. So downtown Toronto, that's where all the jobs are. That's where all the people want to live. That's where all the millennials are. That's where your tenant profile is. That's where the demographic that you're focusing on is going to want to be. Not going to want to be. They already want to be there, right? Now that I'm not going to, there's lots more to talk about in terms of economic fundamentals and the location you should be looking at. The reason I talk about economic fundamentals is because the economic fundamentals helps us understand demand in an area. So we can't say definitively, oh, your rents will go up, your rents will go down, or the building's going to have a positive effect or negative effect. We can't say that without understanding, like in isolation, without understanding the greater whole. So I'll give you an example now, a very specific example. So in downtown Toronto, near the ACC, obviously tons of development, tons of stuff going on. ACC was built, then a whole bunch of condos went around there, specifically Ice Tower, Ice condos. It's like 12 and I think 14 York. That building went up. When a building goes up, and there's like between the two buildings, there's like 500 units, right? So building gets finished, tons of units flood the market all at once. Boom. Great location, walking distance to the path, to the ACC, to Union Station, right? But when the building initially got done, rents were artificially depressed. And that's because a whole bunch of units flooded the market all at once, right? Does that mean the economic fundamentals of the area weren't good? No, the area is still good. It's still supported, it still supported it still was a good investment, still a good area. It just meant that the rents were artificially depressed for a short period of time, 6 months, 12 months. That's just what happens, right? 500 units, let's say, I don't know, half are investors, half are homeowners. So you have basically 350 units that all come on at the same time within a matter of months. Yes, rents are going to get depressed. So at the time, we should have been able to rent it for like 22, 2300. We could only get 2050, if I recall correctly. So like $200 less. We're like, oh, WTF, what the hell? Right? That's what happens when a whole bunch of units flood the market at the same time, right? So over time, over the next few years, as the area, as that supply starts getting absorbed, rents now for that same unit, and this finished in like 2015, I want to say. Now we're 2019, and we initially market rent should have been 2300. We got 2050. Now it just re-rented for like 2,900, I believe, right? So this is just an anecdote to talk about, what happens initially when an area gets flooded. So is it going to have an adverse effect on your rent specifically for you? Could be if it's a comparable type of unit, right? Are rents going to go down? Don't know. It depends on lots and lots of factors. Ultimately, it comes down to supply and demand, though. So you get flooded with a whole bunch of units, right? So supply, and then so supply is increasing. The question is demand increasing faster than supply? So that's kind
Join the meeting.
I don't have a specific answer for you in your specific scenario. The problem that I see anyway is just, or at least the question you have to answer for yourself is why did I buy in this area? Did I buy just because it's cheap, or did I buy because I actually believed in this area because of the gentrification, because of transit infrastructure, because this is where millennials want to be? If those things still ring true, then the question is, are we still on this growth trajectory for the area in terms of the gentrification and everything else, and a whole bunch of supply hitting the market? Will that adversely affect me? You'll have to determine that for yourself, for your own particular area. But does that give you at least some analytical tools or a framework to think about it?
Yeah, I think so. How about the fact that we'd be competing against like professionals that are, that are trained and geared towards just renting units versus us being, I wouldn't call myself a professional in any means when it comes to rental properties.
I don't think there's a...
Hey guys.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ming.
Yeah, I'll just jump in because I'm a little more familiar with that area, just because my principal residence happens to be just down the street at Yonge and Sheppard. So I know the developments you're talking about. They're popping up all around Wilson Station. I'm also not sure if you're aware there's a whole redevelopment happening of Yorkdale Mall itself. So the large parking lots that you see surrounding Yorkdale Mall, there's a proposal. I think it's to put in 10 condos in that area. So, all the economic fundamentals aside, just looking at the microeconomics of that particular area, there's a ton of supply that's going to be coming online in the next 10 years. Is that a good or a bad thing? Like Matt said, I think in the beginning, you're definitely going to see some sort of hit to your rental rates. You're going to see some sort of hit to sale prices. Especially when there's assignments, and if people get caught with those assignments, flooding the market kind of with cheaper product, right? Long-term's harder to say. If we look at 10, 15 years out from now, as the demographic shifts, who knows, right? But I think in the medium to short term, when that product comes onto the market, yeah, you're going to see some sort of impact with it, just because there's going to be a ton more supply. And in that area, there isn't lots of condos, right? They are all clustered around those subway stations. And sorry, the second question was?
Oh, they're around the professionals. Like, these are professional rental buildings that are going up, professionally managed.
Yeah. So I think they do have some advantage. Where you'll see that is the way that they manage some of the amenities. They're set up properly for rentals. The way they manage payments, so it's not going to be like an EMT or a check. They have various services that people can use, apps and things like that, to pay. So competition's a little tougher. But they generally charge more. They're more expensive than mom and pop investors. So there's a bit of premium in staying these dedicated rental properties.
That's a good point. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. If you're interested, there's I think Concert has something very similar in the Yonge and Sheppard area. Okay. It's surrounded by condos, and you can check the prices there against the condos in the area as well.
Yeah.
Ming, if you saw the new condos went up, and let's say they're renting for $2,500, just as pulling something out of the air, for a similar 1-bedroom den, what do you think is a fair price to be renting? For David to be renting, like around $2,300, assuming they're the same product otherwise.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to say. What I would do is I would look at seeing what's in your condo, right? So looking immediately at your same in-building competition, because that's really what's going to matter. And then looking kind of at the new building, there probably will be some sort of premium. I think a couple $100 is reasonable for a brand new building with new facilities and things like that. So yeah, I think you're on the right track, Jason.
So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm actually going to say, I'm going to say something that's a little more contrary to Ming. I actually don't think that there would be much of or any premium between professional rental company and mom and pop. The reason is because at the end of the day, it's about the product, right? It's not going to be about, oh, it's more convenient for me to pay rent with a professional rental company, so I'm going to give them an extra $50 or $100. I tend to think that it's going to be more around the product, and the reason that they'll be able to get higher rents is because the building is probably going to be newer, or the finishes might be a little more up to date, or the amenities that that particular building has is a bit better. And not necessarily because of, I got a professional property manager.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I was going at. It's the product. So if you look at the new dedicated rental properties, it's like, they have these communal areas which have high-speed internet access, which you're not switching from router to router. The same high-speed access you're using in your rental unit, you just take your laptop with you down to the cafe that they have for the rental unit itself, and your Wi-Fi still works down there. You don't have to switch on to something else. It's that kind of product that you can't compete against because you don't have the ability to, and that's where you see the premiums.
Yeah. But anyway, what I was going to mention, Dave, was this is also like the type of stuff that you're seeing and you're experiencing, and the foresight that you are seeing right now, or you're doing right now, is good, because what that's doing is placing you possibly ahead of everyone else. And people who are in your situation possibly think about things like, okay, is this why did I buy this particular unit in this particular building in this particular area? Do those reasons still ring true? Has anything changed fundamentally about the area, or because of the new buildings, or how it's going to affect me? And does my unit still make sense? So there was a time in which so it's obviously much different product, much different location, much different price point. But we had clients who had purchased bungalows in, I don't know, Willowdale or Richmond Hill or something like that, where they experienced tons of growth. They were like, oh, okay, they bought something for here, now it's worth here. It's not about what you bought it for. It's about what it's worth now, and seeing what it's worth now. And then the question is, if I were to be buying it now at today's price, would I be buying it? And if the answer is you wouldn't buy it, there's something to be said for that. Because if you wouldn't buy it now, why were you holding on to it? Because arguably you could be taking that capital and putting it to highest and best use elsewhere, where maybe you're exposed to less risk, or maybe you're getting, maybe you're investing in an area that has more potential for growth or gentrification, or where millennials want to be and all that stuff. So anyway, just food for thought, because I see a lot of one trend, one common theme I see amongst a lot of investors is that they become very, very, very emotionally invested in their properties. And one thing that we can do is look at your portfolios objectively to assess whether this still makes sense in the context of your portfolio, or whether it's ultimately helping you reach your goals or not. So anyway, just food for thought.
That's awesome. Thanks for the advice, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Who's next? Laba just joined us.
Hey, Matt, I have a question about driveways.
I saw it. I posted it here. I don't know if you can see the chat or not. Everyone who messaged me, I put it up here. So yeah. Okay. Question. I see it.
Okay. Well, I can't see it in the chat right now, but
okay.
The general question is, like, I have a bungalow that's in North York, and it's like on a corner lot, and that corner that it's on is a four-way stop, right? And so I'm considering converting it into a multi-unit, right? Right now it's bungalow, but the main issue is it doesn't have parking. So one of my thoughts is to put parking on the other side of on the lot, but I tried looking at the bylaws just to understand like how far it needs to be from an intersection, and it was like it wasn't very clear, because they talk about, I think, like the curvature of the intersection and all this stuff. So I was wondering, in like layman's term, do you guys have a general idea of what it is?
I'm gonna throw it out to Ming, because Ming also has a bungalow in North York on a corner lot. You sure? Maybe you guys own the same property?
I don't know what the minimum distances are from intersections. I'm sure that it exists somewhere in the bylaw. But what I'll tell you right now is if your house doesn't have an it would be like what, two separate driveways essentially, correct?
Yeah, two separate driveways
Yeah. So if
on
your house,
different sides of the street, different
yeah.
street.
So what I'll tell you now is that there is somewhere in the bylaw that only allows one driveway for a house, for a single family dwelling, unless it was designed with like multiple entrances. So like any house you see that's like a corner lot that kind of has like a entrance on one corner and an exit on the other, when it was designed and registered with the city, it was done at that time. Not to say you can't do it. So what you may require is a minor variance, and that would be going through the Committee of Adjustments to get a minor variance to add that second driveway.
Okay, so that'd be kind of the first steps of like where to go.
Yeah,
through.
the first thing would be to talk to city planning, tell them what you're up to, and they'll probably recommend you go through the variance process.
So,
And my recommendation is city planning is not the idiots at the front desk, because you can't trust what they say. You need
Yeah.
to get second line.
You can Google who your local planner is. So whatever ward you're in, just Google that ward and the word city planner, Toronto, and it should come up with one or two names. There's like 2 or 3 city planners dedicated per ward. Send an email to that person. They will take like a week or two to reply to you. And they'll be able to direct you a little better. But my guess is they're going to say, yeah, you got to take it to Committee of Adjustments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
so,
Thanks.
so Godfrey, I'm going to take it a step back a little bit, and I want to understand a little bit more about why you feel like you need this driveway.
Well, because how the property is right now, there's only 2 parking spots, right? And that's counting the garage as one,
Right.
right? So there is no way to add really any additional parking to there except for but because it's a side lot, it's set back quite far onto one side. So technically, if I were able to put in a separate driveway in there, it's essentially like a 3-car tandem length.
Right. So I mean, I know arguably we don't work, we don't focus on your area too much, so you would know better. Do you feel like your tenant profile, I mean, it's a bungalow, so you got an up-down bungalow, right?
Yeah.
You have a main floor, you have a basement. Does your basement tenant always have a car?
So right now it's a single family home, right? So considering just converting it either into definitely into 2, potentially if I can get in 3, because the idea is it's a bungalow but also has an extension, so there's a separate floor that's slightly smaller, and so that's kind of like there's enough floor plates to kind of get potentially 3 units into there. But the main issue is really around the parking, and and it's just something that I'm just considering just more so to hold it into the future, because this is like a family home, so there's a lot of other factors in play. But it's near Eglinton, where one of the new LRT stations would be, so it's like doesn't make sense.
Where is it? Eglinton.
It's like VP in Eglinton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Vic Park and Eglinton, I'm familiar enough with that area that I know that, you should be more familiar with it than I am. But when I recall looking at that area for a client, basement tenant didn't need a car necessarily. So, you may be jumping the gun a little bit in terms of, okay, I can't even do it, or it doesn't make sense because I don't have a driveway, or a second car spot for. That may not be your roadblock, though, right? And then you're talking about triplex. Like, you're already talking about things that are so far beyond just the one parking spot. Like, are you allowed to do what you're trying to do with your home, with permits and everything else. It just, there's more to it than just this one driveway element. And I guess the reason I bring it up is just because, Ming has a bungalow, corner lot, and he's got a basement tenant. And, whether that basement tenant has a car could be dependent upon, transit routes, amenities nearby, where that person works, is their work nearby. You're very close to, like, let's say Golden Mile, right? So around there, is that, you need to know who your tenant profile is. Is that person working at the Golden Mile, one of those big box stores? Maybe they walk to work, maybe everything they need, because there's groceries around there, there's a beer store, there's shopping mall, maybe everything is already there for them without too much issue of a car. Or maybe, I could be completely wrong, right? That's why I'm saying you getting to know who your tenant profile is going to be the first step before kind of putting the cart before the horse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like I said, it's just kind of because this property is a property that's within the family, and like they're not looking to divest, so it's kind of like they're
which is totally understandable too. Some people, they figure, oh, I've already got something I can work with. Let's just use that. That makes sense too, right? But yeah, but I mean, you're talking about possibly a triplex conversion and things like that. Anyway, all I'm saying is, like, I don't think I've seen any homes with two driveways on two different streets, except for maybe if it's a kind of a circular driveway that kind of starts on one street, goes to the other. I think I may have seen that once. But yeah, I don't think it's very common to be able to get another driveway, or you might need a variance. Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, taking a step back, you may not need that in order to still achieve what you're trying to achieve.
Actually, a quick question for Ming then.
Yeah.
In terms of adding the secondary suites for Toronto in specific, do they have a parking requirement?
Secondary suite doesn't, but duplex does. So it depends how you're defining your secondary unit.
Yeah, so like a accessory, like a
I don't know if that's
apartment.
I know it's kind of cryptic, but it is a tough thing. But the answer, like the short answer, is that you don't necessarily need it, and there may be ways to get around it from an allowance standpoint from the city.
Yeah,
food for thought.
If I was you and you're looking to position that parking, I would just say your family wants additional parking because you have more cars. If you start getting into like, I need parking because I'm running a triplex or duplex, then you're going to get into much more complicated issues.
Actually,
especially if you're not zoned for, especially if you haven't. Go ahead.
What I wanted to ask was that, like, for example, is there a possibility I've seen where you have a driveway and then where they extend the driveway like this, so you can actually fit one car this way and one car this way? I don't know if you can see my hand motions, right? So you have your driveway and then you kind of branch off of it. I see that in downtown quite often. Don't know if you can do that in Scarborough, North York area.
That I'm not too sure, but essentially, if I do that, it takes away the backyard.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. It's just something I've seen before. But anyway, yeah. Sorry, it's I wouldn't say we have any particular expertise to be able to help you there.
No, but it's, definitely some ideas to think about.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
All right, cool. Anyone else want to throw something else before? I think Laba's sending me a few messages, so we can talk about her stuff. All right, let's talk about Laba stuff. Hey, Laba. Hello.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah. So cool. I'm seeing some of your messages. Do you want me to answer your first one where you're talking about the operationalization of running like an investment business and being a landlord in Toronto, or do you want me to talk about the questions you just sent me?
The questions I sent you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't you. That was someone else. Okay. So Laba, you have, okay, sorry. Sean sent me something. I completely misread that. Okay, so do you want to talk about your questions, Laba?
Okay. What I sent the Volition guys was just basically, we love the triplex idea. It's going to make a ton of money. Great. Let's do it, right? And then that's the development phase. Development phase, you guys nailed it. Now let's move into the operations phase, which is us being the landlord.
Yeah.
So how do I become the best landlord possible? Excuse me, I have a cold.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll say right off the bat, so thank you. Those are very kind words. I'll say right off the bat, there is no silver bullet to running a your investment business and being a landlord and, you know, managing your rentals smoothly and seamlessly. There is no silver bullet. There's not, this is an ongoing iterative process. And I think if I were Japanese, the word I would use is probably Kaizen. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Nice.
Before you dive into it, I would say the biggest thing you can do to set up yourself for success is start with the right property. It's really important, and it's very, very underplayed, I think, especially for new investors. You know, when you're buying your first property, you're cash flow focused. You know, you might be, you know, capital constraints, so you're looking at certain types of properties. You get in, but then you have to manage the tenants, and that's the thing that takes years and years. The purchase is pretty quick, right? So you really want to start with the right property, and that means with the tenant in mind, right? So if you're going in, you should know, you know, as we were talking about, like, this is your particular tenant, and wherever that happens to be, you know, if you're into student rentals, you have to really know, like, which are your students, what schools do they go to, what kind of programs are they in, when are their exams, you know, what is what kind of properties are they looking for? Are they looking for shared kitchens? Are they looking for individual bathrooms? Like, you really need to know your tenant, because if you know your tenant, your building meets that tenant profile. So that's the biggest thing, because if you're in Toronto, you're looking for that millennial demographic, right? And if you're looking for that millennial demographic, it means you're going to buy in a certain area. If you don't buy in those areas, you're not going to get that demographic. You're going to get someone else, and they're going to be different to deal with than what you expect. And where things get frustrating is when reality and expectations don't match up, right? If you're, you know, when Matt and I started investing, and we were investing in these smaller towns, the reality was the tenant profile was a lot more difficult than we expected, and it led to a lot of frustration and a lot of divesting and expenses on our parts. So that's the biggest thing. Make sure that property matches the tenant profile you're after, and I think that's the single biggest thing you can't do.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And if you've seen some of the white papers and literature that we've put together, it's basically, there's one of them anyway. If you haven't seen it, I think it's up on our website. It's called Why Toronto, and we actually talk about why Toronto makes sense. Most people think, oh, Toronto's too expensive. It's not a good investment. We're like, well, that's bullshit. You just don't know what the hell you're talking about. So the reality is, you know, as Ming said, tenants are the biggest risk in your business, and catering to the right profile, and the profile who is, you know, most likely to take care of your unit, or most likely to pay rent, not to be a trouble tenant, not the type of tenant who, you know, when they get their social assistance check, they're going to go buy beer rather than pay rent. And I hate to overgeneralize, but there is sort of a reality around this. And I know this just because of my own experience, you know, and we, you know, between Ming, Sam, and I, we've invested in Hamilton and Edmonton and Sudbury and Kitchener and Waterloo, and we've all brought our portfolios back to Toronto because the profile of the tenant just didn't match what we were looking for. High headache, right? There's something to be said for not just ROI, right? But I think I mentioned this in the car. It's not just ROI. it's about risk-adjusted ROI and headache-adjusted ROI. So, you know, buying in the right areas and being able to cater to the profile. Find your tenant profile first, and then build the business model around them. That is going to be the kind of the single biggest thing that you can do to sort of mitigate that risk and to ensure that you're going to, you know, when your tenants are good tenants, you could be a good landlord, right? It makes it a lot easier.
So, and then the way I phrased it in my email was, okay, if I buy the house next to Sam, I want to outperform Sam. So all things being equal, how do I outperform, you know, my niche market? That's the thing.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you mean by outperform though? That's is it a competition? Like if you both can rent for $4,000 and you both get $4,000, is it like, it's nice if you can get $4,100, but $4,000, that's the market rate and you're getting it and you're 100% rented?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that good? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just, so for example, in Vancouver, my 1-bedroom unit, it's in Mount Pleasant. It rents for $500 a month more than my neighbor. And there are some things, I mean, it's the same building. I have not upgraded anything. It's the way I manage it that allows me to do that. So I don't want to assume anything about the let's call it the premium tenants here that we're all of us are going after. That's what I really wanted us to start having conversations, move away from development, which we talk about a lot, and into operations.
Yep. No, absolutely. You know, it's a very valid point. And sorry, I misconstrued the question, I guess. But sorry, I went off on a tangent. But it's a really good question, and it's something that we talk about on, for example, our Volition Mastermind WhatsApp chat all the time. So all of our Volition clients and all of our Volition advisory clients are on this chat. You know, it's one of the perks of being a Volition client, and we talk about this pretty much nonstop. And it's about, like, a lot of the stuff is not about what should I buy next, and, you know, oh, what should I do here, or, you know, it's around, oh crap, I'm having this rat problem. What do I do? I'm having this such and such a problem. What do I do? And so, you know, it's a learning process. I wouldn't say there's only, you know, one thing that you're supposed to do to be that premium landlord. And I see some of the things you said in your bullet points. Those are good things. Let's go through them one by one. So listing websites, yes, Kijiji. You know, if you want to try to Craigslist and Kijiji, yep. Condo.ca, PadMapper. PadMapper actually pulls from a lot of the different places. TorontoRentals.ca, no. Like, you don't need what was that crappy one? Is it View It? Like, you don't need View It. Yeah, you don't need View It. Oh, you said that here. Yeah, you don't need View It. So I mean, yeah, that's get on the right listing websites for sure, especially if you're planning to do this yourself. You know, otherwise you can think about trying to get it up on using an agent and getting it up on realtor.ca. Sometimes that's a way to go, especially if you're trying to find a premium tenant. That premium tenant may have their own agent, and they're not just trying to search for themselves. So that's one way. Obviously, there's some costs involved there, so you just have to weigh the cost and benefit. You know, and then, you know, you missed part of the conversation that we had earlier, but around executive rental or fully furnished rental. Yeah. Oh, you have that here too. Furniture. So fully furnished rental, there is a market for that, especially in Toronto, just like there would be in Vancouver. This does not go for any smaller market though. And you just have to make sure that you're in the right areas. Executive rental may be a misnomer because you know, if you're looking at a triplex in Little Italy or somewhere, you may not get that executive who wants to be at one of the big glass towers in downtown Toronto as a hotel alternative. Rental application fee, I doubt that. I mean, I don't have any experience with it. If there anyone who is aggressive enough to charge a rental application fee, it would be Jason. So, I mean, I've never charged someone just to apply for my unit. Have you?
I've never known.
Well, but I could see the wheels turning in your head. You're like, oh, yeah, why the hell am I not charging?
Just for the people that come up and say, can I bring my 2 Doberman dogs through the unit when I'm doing the viewing? Yes, you can. Each person pays $30, including the dogs.
Nice. Move-in fee. If you could get someone to pay you to move in, that'd be great. You know,
I met somebody yesterday that was saying they paid. My masseuse, she paid $1,500 when she moved in. They told her that she had to paint the place, and when she moved out 2 years later, she had to pay $1,000 security deposit to paint the place again. I was like, you should have just told them to shove it. Like,
well, I mean, that's
insane.
Yeah. I can't believe your masseuse would go for that. I mean, the reality is we're not in a market where anyone would normally pay that. Right? So, and we have landlord-tenant laws that would probably frown upon some of this stuff, like additional fees and taking, you know, that kind of stuff. So I know, you know, just so you know, Laba, the landlord-tenant laws here are very, very tenant-friendly. I know they are in Vancouver too, but in
draconian.
Yeah, draconian.
Is draconian the word you're looking for?
Is that better than stupid?
One-sided. Yeah.
But I know BC is also tenant-friendly, but Ontario is even more tenant-friendly. So some of the stuff that you're talking about wouldn't even fly. If they took you to landlord-tenant board, you'd probably be in the wrong. Criminal record check. I've seen people do that. I've seen people, you know, it's something that some people at RAIN do. It's not a common practice. You know, that's a level of due diligence that's quite extensive. Not that it's bad. I don't know. Has anyone in this thread ever done a criminal record check? Jason? Have you ever done one? Jason?
What's that? Sorry,
have you ever done a criminal record check?
No, I have not.
Yeah.
I've done all the other. I ran it through that website that we. It's skipping my mind right now, but where they do the reference checks for them. But I don't think I paid for the criminal one just because I'm assuming anyway at the type of tenants that I go for. If they kill someone, they do it properly and don't get caught. So it'd be a waste of time.
They're proper
smart
professionals.
Proper professionals, yes.
Do you remember that website, Ming? I know the one Jason's talking about. We've talked, like the RAIN has talked about it a lot, and I think we've talked about it on our Volition chat.
I can't remember off the top of my head. The last bunch of places I had. Yeah.
Pull it up.
Okay. But anyway, these things aren't wrong. You know, I do know some people who do them, especially like RAIN type investors. I have seen it, and I have seen RAIN advertise this company's services to do it. Credit check, 100%. You have to do a credit check. You have to know how to read a credit report. I mean, I don't do it anymore, but my team does it. And, you know, we have a training system that we basically do the equivalent of a financial rectal exam on our tenants, right? Like, I know more about my tenants' financial situation than they do. Like, I know how much money they have at the end of every month to like pay for everything, right? Like, I know more than they do. I could be their financial advisor by the end of me reading their credit check, right? So you have to know that too. You have to know how to read, you know, how to ask them to get their credit report. Go to Equifax.ca, sign up for the 30-day whatever. You know, it's free. Give it to me. Some people who are even more anal and who are concerned that they even might modify their credit report before giving it to you, then you can pull it if you get them to sign the rental application to saying that you're allowed to pull their credit. Anyway, know how to read it. Know, you know, what it means to have outstanding accounts, 30-day late, 60-day late, 90-day late, all that stuff, how much outstanding credit they have, how much their debt servicing is for that credit, if they have any car loans, if they have student loans, if they have a tendency not to pay off their balances of the credit cards, and then match that up to their employment, right? So you have their letter of employment, their pay stubs. You actually know how much they take home net every month. Are they going to be able to pay rent? There's so many people who, apply for, let's say, one of my places that's like, I don't know, $2,500. I'm like, you only net 3,500. Why the hell, what business do you have even applying for one of my units? Because I know what's going to happen. It's inevitable. You're not going to have enough money for food, for gas, and because you're a millennial, you're avocado toast, and you're not going to pay rent. And we're going to run into the song and dance eventually. I don't want you, right? So yes, credit check, very, very important. Allowing pets. Philosophically, I don't like pets. I like dogs, but I don't want any dogs in my unit. Cats are even worse, if you could believe that. Cat pee is extremely bad. Dogs at least will go anyway, dogs, I don't like pets. And you're not supposed to discriminate. The hard part is the freaking tenant. I can screen and disallow a tenant and say, because I don't want pets. But if they, after they move in, get my keys, move into my unit, a week later or a month later, get a dog, I actually have no recourse. Yeah. That's it's so stupid. But anyway, we do the best we can.
Sorry about pets.
Yes.
So I do allow pets, and that's part of the reason why I can command more.
Yep.
So what I've done in the past is get vet bills, request vet bills, and any other type of investment that they've made in their pet. I truly believe that a well-loved, well-cared-for pet will do far less damage than a child. The most damaging thing to a property is actually a child under 5. So, anyways, and the premium clients, as we like to call them, the pet is a part of the family, and that is part of the reason why they choose my unit over other units. So
yeah, I wonder if there's a difference in culture between Vancouver and here. I mean, I'll be perfect. I'll share my experience. I don't have to allow pets. You might be able to get a premium, so that I'm not going to dispute. But here in Toronto, my experience is that I don't know if Toronto, the people are just oh, I'm too busy for a pet or whatever. Certain areas, if you go out to, for example, what's that area just west of downtown, west of King West? That's
Liberty Village.
Liberty Village. You go to Liberty Village. It's where near where Jason was. There's there, all those townhouses. There's dog-friendly parks. So that is an area where there is a ton of dogs and a ton of pets. But down in downtown core, we don't necessarily, of course there are going to be pets, but we don't necessarily see that there's I don't know, is anyone else's experience different than that?
I would say that there's just, I don't need to do it just because there's enough interest, but I love that idea of getting the vet bills, and then you can see a responsible owner. You've got a much, I don't know, it reduces the amount of risk of having a bad time. I'm just still wondering, I always think, a 20-pound dog, 20-pound dog is going to do so much damage. Sorry, guys, you'll have to hold on a sec.
Okay, so thanks for that incomplete thought. No, okay.
I'm sure
Well,
in the background.
I'll give you a couple of other quick anecdotes. So in my Hamilton properties, I always get people who want to bring pets through, and I personally, how I run my business, I don't want them. I've seen the damage they've done in the past and stuff like that, so I just don't allow them. And I own in Edmonton too. I'm trying to divest those. In Edmonton, I always get people with dogs too. So it seems to be, at least from my experience, these smaller towns and also like the certain socioeconomic profile that just seems to attract them. Not saying that people who have money also don't want pets, but for whatever reason, that's just been my impression, my experience. But anyway, coming back to Edmonton, I have a very good property manager out there, and what they do is they actually get a pet addendum to the lease, and I can actually send it to you, Laba, if you want to see it. So basically, it outlines, the pet, their age, whether or not they were spayed or neutered, weight of the dog and everything. So and then they meet the dog. So like part of the screening is you actually meet the dog, just like you meet the tenant, and then they're trained to be able to tell, like a property manager is trained to be able to tell if they think a dog, this particular pet is going to be problematic or not. So that's part of the actual screening process. They meet the pet. So
what is it they screen for? Like, I'm really familiar with dogs, and the only thing I would go, like, any dog over, well, heck, my past dog was 25 pounds and my floors are scratched all to hell from 3 years of that dog. I can't imagine any, like, and I'm a massive dog lover, but I can't imagine any dog over 10 pounds that's not going to destroy your place.
Yeah,
destroy your floors anyway, unless you have maybe a certain type of floors that are.
I think when they were meeting them, they want to see whether they think this dog is like overactive and like, I own 4 townhouses that are side by side, right? And so, is it a loud yappy dog or is it an aggressive dog, right? Those are the types of things, like they want to know kind of the history of the dog and they want to know the breed of the dog and stuff like that. So, because I think I mean, I don't know that much about dogs, but I think that there are certain dogs that are a little more aggressive than others. And so that ends up being part of kind of the screening process.
Sorry, to add to that, it's not just the biological nature of the dog. It's if the owner put in the resources to train the dog. All dogs need to be trained. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a responsible owner that invests in training their dog.
Yeah, for sure. And like you very well might have a niche here that we just haven't stumbled upon, right? Or haven't explored before, right? If you have that experience, there may be something here that you could do to get the $200 more in rent than everyone else. For sure.
So what I want to do is, like, we have only a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to take what everybody's touched upon but hasn't talked about directly and roll it up into an answer for you, Lava. The thing that will make you outperform your neighbor, like the reason you're getting $500, you already know this. You are better educated and you're hustling harder than your neighbor is, right? Your neighbor, it probably rented it out and has never looked at that rental property in years from the time that it's been rented. But that's not you. And that's the difference maker, right? The difference maker here is the network that you have. So getting yourself out there, meeting other investors, finding out what's happening, like what is the latest platform people are advertising on. For the longest time, Craigslist was king, and then it fell to the side when Kijiji started to rise up in popularity. If you weren't plugged into the market, you could have been wasting years putting ads on Craigslist without any hits, right? So one is being plugged in, having that network, and 2 is keeping yourself educated. All this stuff is dynamic, right? All the things that we're talking about today, they apply, yes, now, in this slice of time. 10 years from now, it's going to be different. And if you stop paying attention to what's happening with your business, then it's going to fall by the wayside. You won't get that premium anymore.
Yeah,
that's the thing, right?
You're actually, Ming summed it up extremely well. The strategy of keeping yourself educated, networking, and keeping yourself current and relevant is the strategy is more important than the actual tactic. And the tactic you're saying is like include parking or don't include parking or include pets or don't include pets. These tactics can whatever. But I think Ming's point is very well taken. It's the strategy of networking, keep yourself current, keeping yourself relevant. That's going to overarching, that's going to be the more important thing. And then, you know, whether that means, oh, you know, you market your actually, we had a whole meetup on this previously, talking about how to like get higher rents than everyone else, and it was around like, you know, Mink summed it up well. Hustle more, create better ads, take better photos. You know, there's all of those types of things. So anyway, I think you did sum it up quite well.
Thanks.
Yeah. There's a few other questions we didn't get to, so I'll have to save them for next time. But any last comments just before we sign off? A couple more minutes. Okay. The couple of more questions that I had here. I'm happy to talk to them separately, since we're out of time here. So I know Ming has to sign off because he's got a hard stop. I can go on for another 10 minutes if you guys want to stick around, and I'll get through some of these other questions as quickly as I can.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, you know, if there are questions or you want to dive into anything, we do have our free advisory session. You know, folks are welcome to email me. It's ming@volitionprop.com. We can set up some time to chat about it. Typically what we do is we kind of run through and create a plan, you know, kind of where you are today and where you want to get to in the future. But the time can be used for anything. The hour's yours, and we can go through any sort of interesting things that you want to talk about real estate wise.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so reach out to Ming. I think he's taken off because he told me before he had to leave at 8. So, yep. But okay. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
Go Raptors, go.
Oh, is there a Raptor? That's why you're signing off?
No, game's at 9. I got to get stuff done before the game.
Right.
Party.
Okay.
See you, Ming.
Cool.
See you guys.
Okay, couple of quick questions. Someone said, I missed the last chat, looking for good cash flow appreciation property. Where would you look for them? Also, for good property manager for PTBO student rentals. It's PTBO. I don't know what PTBO is, and I don't think this person's here. Looking for good cash flow and appreciation property. I think, you know, if you've been with us long enough, you'll know that's too general of a question for me to give a specific answer to. So I'm just going to bypass it. Where would you look for them? Okay. Looking for a good property manager for Peterborough. PTBO. I didn't even know that's an acronym. I don't have any good property managers in Peterborough. So my apologies.
You could talk to, who's the gal that she's got a couple of multifamilies out there. I know she was looking
Teresa?
for, Teresa.
Okay.
If you're on the other WhatsApp list, you can bounce it off her.
Okay.
They could also ask me. I use a couple of them out there.
Okay. Ask Godfrey. Message Godfrey directly if you have the question. I don't even know whose question this is, and I don't even know if they're here. Okay. Off-market deals. Okay. The one thing we can say is people love thinking they get a great deal. They're looking for off-market deals. Oh, you know, I got it at 50K under market or 20K under market. And it's like, I don't know. To me, I think you're missing the point. I think it's more important to get the right property in the right area to be able to cater to the right profile than trying to get a deal. That's just my take on it. I think people are too caught up in trying to get a great deal and miss the major point. It's like stepping over pounds for pennies, right? Okay, next. So Sean sent me 2 questions. You guys talk a lot about how you don't invest outside the Toronto core, Hamilton, Waterloo, etc. I was wondering if you can elaborate more on this and why, and if you had any anecdotes. Yeah, I've got a lot of anecdotes. I have one right now. Okay, so I've got a 2-bedroom in Hamilton that my tenant hasn't paid rent since January. And I'm not saying this couldn't happen in Toronto. I'm saying is the business model that we cater to in Toronto, we don't get people who don't pay rent. If you're making 60, 80K, you're university educated, and you're working for a big firm in downtown Toronto, and let's say you work for an accounting firm, can you imagine me calling up PwC's HR department and saying, hey, I have a court order, there's a judgment against one of your accountants who didn't pay rent, allowing me to garnish their wages? It's just like, I know it's a stupid example, but it's this is the reality. So this is very, very common. Non-payment of rent, skipping out in these smaller towns, and it's because of the tenant profile. I'm not saying everyone in these areas is a bad tenant. I'm saying you have a higher propensity to landing one in one of your units. For me, it's not just about ROI, and everyone's like, oh, the cash flow is better. Yeah, the cash flow is better, but there's a reason the cash flow is better. You don't get something for nothing. So if you're getting higher cash flow, what else are you introducing into your business model? What other risk are you introducing to your business model? Tenant's the biggest risk in our business, period. It's not the market. It's not interest rates. It's not these other crap that people talk about. It is the tenants. Sorry, go ahead.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm just agreeing to your preaching.
All I do is preach, apparently. Okay.
If you target the specific tenant, like if let's say you do student rentals in a university town, or like in Waterloo where there's a high volume of like tech workers and you target those, like does it change anything or no?
It does change things. So I'm not, again, I'm painting this with a very broad brush. The point I'm trying to make, as opposed to, inside Toronto, outside Toronto, the bigger point I'm trying to make is understand your business model. Understand what you're getting yourself into. 99% of the people who I talk to, who, when they go, oh, it's cheaper elsewhere, that's why I'm going to invest it there, they're buying because it's cheap, not because it's smart. And they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. They're just chasing additional cash flow. They don't realize the compensation, they don't realize the additional headache, the additional risk, and everything else. If it's part of your business, and I'm not saying you can't do really, really well in these areas. I know lots of investors who've done very, very well in those areas. Just understand what you're getting yourself into, right? So if it's your business model to cater to students, understand that business model through and through, right? Realize that, it's not going to, your headache factor is going to go up. Your costs are going to go up because of the property management, because of damage, because you have to repaint, because of these are students who are moving out of the mommy and daddy's home for the very first time. Like it's a totally different business model. You just need to make sure it's part of your strategy and your strength to go in and mitigate those risks. It has to be part of your business plan to know how you're going to go in and be successful in that business model. So, student rentals in university towns, trying to cater to it, the tech hub, the tech triangle in like the KWC. Sure, if you know how to do it, go ahead. But if you don't, and you're going because it's cheap, that's where a red flag goes up. Okay. Between executive rentals and triplexes, the investment types I've seen you guys talk about tend to be on the higher end. For someone who doesn't have 800K in cash, is there a strategy you suggest for a lower budget, or should you just, or is there none, or should you just save up? I think that it's a multifaceted answer. So I think number one is there are ways. This is why we understand not everyone has 800K or 300K or whatever. But what a lot of people don't realize is their best way to move forward is usually an existing property they own, right? So leveraging the equity in that property and then using that to move forward. And then the argument is, well, I don't even have my first property. Of course, getting started is tough. I'm not going to lie, right? So that's why we employ a stepping stone approach. So maybe that means 10% down for something smaller, condo, and condo in the right areas where we believe where there's growth potential because of gentrification, because of new developments nearby, because of transit infrastructure, stuff like that. And then using that as your stepping stone, as your launching pad to bigger and better things. So there is a stepping stone approach. You don't, and if you have zero money, yeah, it's tough. If you're just starting out and you're a student, yeah, it's tough. I'm not going to lie. Some of the things I do talk about, though, is, if you dedicate yourself, like I'm going to use Russell Westcott as an example. What Russell Westcott is, well, you even know Russell Westcott, Sean. You talked to him. Russell Westcott started out with nothing. His first deal wasn't a property he bought himself. He did a joint venture. That was his first deal. And he loves to say, if a short, bald guy can do it, you can too, right? His first deal was a joint venture. So how the hell do you do that? Well, he did it. And how he did it was he believed in real estate. He threw himself into educating himself about every facet about real estate, and he made that joint venture partner believe that he would rather die than fail that joint venture partner. Right? With that level of dedication, that level of tenacity, he won him over. Right? He was living in a basement for $500 when he bought his first property with zero money to his name. When he bought his first property, I guess what I'm saying is, people think that money is a roadblock, and it is. It can be. Like, don't get me wrong, but I truly believe that if you are someone who is, so dedicated, so tenacious, will do anything they need to in order to succeed and move forward, you'll find a way. So I don't think money, personally, I mean, it's easy for me to say because, obviously I'm already in real estate and everything else, but I truly believe that if you set your mind to it and you 110% believe that you can do it, you'll find a way, right? Those things can be, dedicating like educating yourself, and then building those communities around you, and that's eventually going to, like, maybe bank of mom and dad, sibling, brother and sister, friend, and having those conversations around, hey, why don't we could do something together? You don't have the time. You want to retire. You're worried about your retirement. Hey, what if I can help you find an opportunity that could help with your retirement, or things like that, right? Rain talks about this a lot. I'm not sure. I haven't been connected with Rain in a while, but they used to talk about this a lot, how money is not your limiting factor. There's a whole course on it, joint venture secrets. It's, this is too, I don't have the time here. This is not really the right forum, but joint venture and raising capital, and attracting capital and finding partners is a whole thing to explore. And, again, can you start out with no money? Yeah, you can start off with no money, and you could still figure out how to get started. So anyway, it's a long-winded answer, but there are ways. And the other thing is, when you start talking to joint venture partners, that might even be bank of mom and dad. It doesn't have to be a handout. The way that you can structure it with them can be a win-win. Right? So it's not like, hey, can you give me some money so I can go invest? No, it'd be like, hey, I've been educating myself about this whole real estate thing. I think I've found the right opportunity. I've got a great team around me. I've got my investor-focused realtors and my investor-focused mortgage broker, and investor-focused XYZ accountant, and everyone. And I've been learning about. I've been reading a lot about how the gentrification in East Harbor, and how it's going to be a new transit hub, and 50,000 new jobs have been going there, and there's new developments nearby, and there happens to be this new opportunity, condo or whatever, and I think I run the financials. I think it's a great opportunity. Is that something you might be interested in? Right, and then you can just have those conversations. So anyway, we had some people even on this thread, like Jin's on this conversation, in this coffee house chat. Jin's a master at raising capital. Talk to him, right, about how he does it. Right, there's tons of people around you, tons of people at the meetup, all who have raised a lot of capital. So getting started, I don't think money is going to be your limiting factor necessarily, unless you think it is. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Jason, TVS, that's what it is. Thank you. So, Laba, TVS is the tenant screening service. So, you can, is it servicestenantverification.ca? Seems like a weird website. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Okay, so TVS. So that I think that is the one. They do like a full-scale criminal background check as well. Bruno, have you advertised pets accepted to get people to admit they have animals? I've been quite fortunate. Most of the people will be upfront. I'll actually say like no pets, and then if people still apply, they're usually like, "Oh, I have a pet. Is that okay?" So But you're saying, have you advertised pets accepted to get people to admit they have animals? Interesting strategy, but I think you might, I don't know. You're kind of, you're saying you're allowing pets to get them to admit that they have pets so you can disqualify them. I don't know. Seems convoluted, but okay. So Lava, sometimes the money is a roadblock. Ha! No, Lava. So money is not a roadblock. This is what I'm
It's a
trying to say.
speed bump from Matt. Matt thinks it is a big speed bump.
It's not a roadblock. Like, it's not, honestly, it's not a roadblock unless you believe it is. And I'm not saying,
Matt,
yeah.
Can I borrow $20?
Yeah, sure. Here you go. Here you go. What opportunity have you presented to me, right? So if you're going to take that $20 and turn it into $100 for me, yeah, right? So no, I disagree strongly with the statement money is a roadblock. Unless it's only a roadblock if you think it's a roadblock. So I know you can, lots of people are gonna be like, oh, but I don't come from a silver spoon. I wasn't a silver spoon baby. I wasn't a trust fund baby. I don't have rich people around me. Neither did Russell Westcott. Neither did I. Like, I don't come from money, right? I'm just this kind of regular guy, immigrant parents, and did I go to fancy Ivy League schools and everything like that? No, I'm just a regular guy who just worked hard, worked my ass off, and found good opportunities to take advantage of and capitalize on. So I don't know. We can take this offline, talk about this further, but there's a whole course on joint ventures. There's a whole course on a whole program on raising capital, attracting capital, being a money magnet and all that other crap. I don't want to get, I hate using these terms. They're all very cliche and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, and I've mentioned this before, but I know that you're fairly new. Like, I've had joint venture partners approach me with a 7-figure check, and I said, no, I'm okay, thanks. No, I'm good. I didn't feel the need to take it, but people have approached me with that kind of money, and I'm not saying this to brag. I'm not saying this for whatever. I'm just saying that it's possible. People have money. I have something to offer of value to them, and they have something of value to offer to me. That's what a partnership is. Jin, do you have anything to add here? I see you finally decided to turn on your video.
Yeah, sorry, no, I'm putting my kids to bed, but I'm going to be quick. But I agree with you 100%. And Jason and Matt, like, money is definitely an obstacle, but it's nothing that you can't overcome. Like, when we first started investing back in Toronto, we completely run our business with investors' money. And, at the beginning, we were just literally begging for, like, small money. Now, we got to a point after we proving ourselves for a while, we can say, oh, that's, I'm sorry, we can't use that money. It's a little too little for us. But you gotta prove yourself, and you gotta show people, you gotta give them opportunities that they are excited to participate in. So it takes some time, but it can be done, and it gets done all the time.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Like, this is not a silver bullet.
And also about Toronto property. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Were you saying something about Toronto properties? You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Toronto properties, I think it all depends on one's objectives, short-term versus long-term cash flow versus, equity buildup. If you look at it as a long-term investment, like, hands down, I think, like, Toronto is the way to go. But at the same time, I understand it's a lot more difficult town to get in, because the point of entry is a lot higher. It's a lot more expensive, and and there's, like, no cash flow initially, but your return over long term will be much better, because a property is a property. It's like you have the same building. You can have the same building in Toronto versus like New Brunswick or out of nowhere. Building cost is pretty much the same, but the real money is in the land. It's about, where people want to be, and, where want to live, and where they want to conduct the business. And that's eventually what's going to give you, the real wealth over long term. But it takes time, because, you have to keep on putting in the work, and you got to let the time do the work for you. It's like, and as Matt mentioned, when you go to like a second tier cities, you're kind of open to the other variables that comes with like the tenant profile, unless otherwise you go to Hamilton and specifically like target like medical professionals or some special type of clientele. Like you're gonna be dealing with less desirable tenant profile, and you're gonna have to pay for it with your time and effort and headache. It's trade-off.
So actually, for those who are still sticking around, I just remembered now, Jin told me have a conversation with him about whether you think investing inside Toronto or outside Toronto makes sense for you. So I think, is that offer still open, Jin, for people? I'm going to say yes because I can't hear you.
Yeah, sure. You're actually cracking up for the last 5 seconds. Yes. Sure.
Okay,
whatever
cool.
That was.
Okay, last question from Bruno. What price point would you be looking at for a condo to start off? So in Toronto, a one bedroom, we're roughly about 900 to 1,000 a square foot in Toronto. In good areas that we believe in, that tenants want to be in, 900 to 1,000 a square foot for like a 550, 600 square foot place. You are looking at, entry is going to be around 550 minimum. Or 600. If you're looking at something like a 2-bedroom, we're into like the 750, possibly 800,000 range. So that's going to kind of be the range. That's going to be the price point. But then the question is, how much money do I actually need to come up with? There, depending on how you go and how you do it, you could do 10% down under the guise that you are going to live there, owner occupied, stuff like that. So there's ways to do it for less than the regular 20% down as well. But anyway, just as a kind of an overarching statement, that's kind of the price points. We did find pre-construction in similar ranges. The beauty of pre-construction is that it allowed you in some of the places. Some of the developments and developers that we were talking to, they would have good programs like, hey, put 5% down initially, and then maybe even just 10% over, the entire until occupancy. So there's sometimes when the right development comes up, the right developer and they offer the right incentives, the right programs to VIP brokers, then we have opportunities to try to get in for less money as well. And the beauty of that is you get in now, you don't have to worry about cash flow, negative cash flow, because you're getting in now. Building's not going to be built for about 5 years, but then rents are on the rise with the reasonable expectation that you'll be able to cash flow neutral, cash flow positive then. Whereas if you were to buy something today, it's definitely cash flow negative in a condo at 20% down. So anyway, there's pros and cons to all these different things, different ways you can do it, different ways you can mitigate that negative cash flow. We've talked about executive rentals, short-term rentals, Airbnb, and all this other stuff. So again, there's ways to do it. You just have to be willing to do what it takes to be successful. The opportunities are there. You just need to decide what makes sense for you according to your goals, and then capitalize on those opportunities. Anyway, we're severely over time now. So thanks guys for joining. This was a less attended session. There's only like 15 or 20 people who started joining. I may start running this back at noon because I'm just not seeing the attendance. So I just want to get a sense. What do you guys think? Like 12 to 1 instead.
I think we should get some questions up. I was just thinking tonight, like I'm interested in the topic, but I think if people see there's 6 questions and 2 of those are of interest to me, I'm more likely to get on and listen to hear what the answers are. You
mean on the meetup description?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, are there ones that you've had sent, or we're gonna talk about these 4 topics if we don't get other questions?
Okay, that makes sense. I guess what I was thinking was I would just leave it kind of open, and then people just start asking questions. I mean, that was kind of the format. That was the
Which I like.
format. But I guess you're saying, you know, have a theme, have some kind of seated questions.
I don't know necessarily the theme, but just like we're going to talk about these 4 questions, unless you know other topics come up, and then that way. Because people like to know what they're dedicating especially Canadians, they like to know what they're dedicating their time to.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a
and
good
then,
point.
then I personally like the fact that we just throw out questions there and it's just a bunch of people chatting about real estate. And it goes all over the place for the hour.
Yeah, I know. That's why there's no predetermined format. I don't know if that's good or bad. You seem to like it. A couple people seem to like it, but I don't know. It's not kind of gaining the traction that I thought. So I don't know if it's time. Like I remember we used to get like 30 people or something when we ran it at noon, 30 to 40 people. I don't know if it's because of the Raptors game tonight or whatever. But
I'm sure that killed it.
I don't know. Like I'm just like I'm dedicating an hour. Things, or you know, we all are. I'm just like we're not kind of getting any value out of it. I know you are, which is great. But like if we're not, I don't know. I'm getting skeptical.
It'd be interesting to see if you ran one at noon on a Monday and then run another one at 7 o'clock on a Thursday and see how the numbers are on that.
Well, I
without
remember
a Raptors game.
When we used to run this on around noon, and we got like people around 30 to 40 people. I don't know. I just want to make sure this is of value to people, and we're hitting enough people that it makes it worth it, right? I don't know. If anyone has any suggestions or ideas, let me know. Okay,
well, thanks for running it tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Adios, Paul.
All right, see ya.
Okay, guys.
Bye.